Hello everyone, this is Kona, and thank you for tuning in to another TF2 commentary. Now, even though TF2 may be known as the hat simulator or the conga simulator to some, to me TF2 is all about the weapons. It's the weapons that really make the gameplay interesting and unique each time you play, but not all weapons are created equal. There are some weapons in TF2 that just kinda suck. If you look purely at the stats of some of these weapons, they may not seem that bad since they usually have some sort of positive attribute that makes them more attractive, but when you actually start playing with it, you'll start to learn that these negative attributes have a far heavier effect, and it makes the weapon very difficult to use. Now, I understand that in the hands of experienced players, even a bad weapon can look good, but I wanted to go over my top 10 worst weapons in TF2 based on what I usually see in pubs. So, let's get started. At number 10 is the Back Scratcher. Now, the Back Scratcher was released in December 2010 as part of the Australian Christmas event. It gives you plus 25% damage and plus 50% health from health packs, but you're healed 75% slower from healing sources like medics, dispensers, and the payload cart. This basically forces you to run all over the map trying to find health from health packs rather than being, useful on the front lines or something. A nice little bonus is that it helps medics build their uber charge a little bit faster. You may have seen some people in pubs and competitive TF2 hurt themselves on purpose while a medic is healing them. This is a little trick you can do to build your uber charge a little bit faster, so with a Back Scratcher, pyros can stay below 100% health a little bit longer to help build that uber. Now, I found myself doing the old puff and sting technique like with the extinguisher, since that seems to be the standard way to use a lot of these melee weapons with the pyro, and it does seem to be doing, a pretty good job with that plus 25% damage. The most irritating part of this weapon is all the waiting you'll have to do just to get healed. Unless you plan on fighting only near med packs, you'll find yourself waiting forever just to get healed. Also, you might confuse a lot of medics out there unless you explicitly tell them you have the Back Scratcher. I've been in so many situations where the medic was healing me and he was confused as to why it took so long. At that point, they usually just give up and heal someone else, and that's a respectable decision. It just takes too damn long to heal. Maybe they can reduce the health penalty a little bit just to make it so that it doesn't seem like you're useless all the time. At number 9 is the Airstrike. Now, the Airstrike was released during the Love and War update in June 2014. Like the name implies, this weapon is all about striking from the air. You get increased attack speed while blast jumping, and your clip size increases with each kill, but you do minus 25% less damage, you start off with only 3 shots in the clip instead of the standard 4, and your rockets have a minus 15% smaller explosion radius. Now, I like the idea of a rocket launcher that focuses on attacking from the air, but to take full advantage of this weapon, you sort of have to use it with the base jumper, which is a very situational weapon. It is possible to use it without the base jumper, but you'll have to make sure that you land all your shots in the air while normal rocket jumping. Usually with a regular rocket launcher, you can get maybe 1 or 2 shots off in the air, and it might take 1 or 2 more to finish them off after you land on the ground. But with the Airstrike, once you hit the ground, you're kind of at a huge disadvantage because you probably emptied your entire clip when you were in the air, and now you have less DPS because you no longer have that higher attack speed. Also, I noticed that it's really hard to build up your clip size when you start off with only 3 rockets per clip. I was playing a bit passive in the beginning in order to build up my clip size, and I usually end up getting a lot of assists rather than kills. Although once I got up to about 5 rockets or so, I could switch it around a bit and play a little bit more aggressive. Next at number 8 is the Third Degree. Now, the Third Degree was released during the Australian Christmas event in December 2011. It essentially has the same stats as a default axe, so it's not that bad. What makes it unique is the ability to deal damage to all players connected with a medic gun beam, so you can hit the medic and deal damage to whoever he's healing, or you can deal damage to that person being healed and the medic will take the same damage. Now, purely based on stats, the default axe is actually the worst, but the reason why I think the Third Degree is bad is that it's too situational compared to the other melee weapons. Usually with the other pyro melee weapons, there's some sort of positive attribute you can take advantage of a little bit more often, like the higher movement speed of the power jack, the mini crits and the crits of the extinguisher, although it's still kind of hard to do now because of the nerf that they did, and even the zapper removal of the Homewrecker and the Neon Annihilator. You can take advantage of that. But how often are you going to sneak up on a medic combo and kill them both with the default melee damage, which is essentially what the Third Degree has? You know, medics usually are healing heavies, soldiers, and other pyros, so in most cases, if you don't have a medic, you know, a pocket medic yourself, you're probably gonna lose that fight. Now, I think you do have a slight advantage against Demoman, but it really depends on how good he is. At number 7 is the Eviction Notice. Now, the Eviction Notice was released in June 2011 as part of the Uber update. It gives you plus 50% firing speed, but you do minus 60% damage. Now, the model is really nice. I like the idea of brass knuckles, that's pretty cool. But if you just look at the stats, it should be obvious that you'll end up doing less damage than the default fists. Now, you could argue that with the faster firing speed, you should get random crits more often because you're basically attacking more often compared to the other melee weapons. But that means you're basically relying on random crits to win fights. Now, you could increase your crit chance by dealing more damage before the random crit. This is basically how the crit rate works in TF2. You know, if you do a lot of damage right before your crit, it takes that into account, and that can increase your crit rate chance. You can also have the guaranteed mini crits with the Buffalo Steak Sandwich, which I think works really well with all the melee weapons, especially the Warrior Spear. That's a lot of fun to use. What I kind of wish they did was add a bleeding effect to this weapon. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? With these big brass knuckles and all, you should be able to punch someone and they should start bleeding or something. I'm not really sure why this isn't an attribute, but oh well. Now, there's actually a tie for number 6 between the Brass Beast and the Tommy Slab. Now, the Brass Beast was released in December 2010 in the Australian Christmas event. You get 20% more damage at the cost of a 50% slower spin-up time and a minus 60% slower move speed while it's deployed. I always call heavies when using the Brass Beast mobile sentries because that's basically what they are. You know, they can move around a little bit like the normal heavies most of the time, but once you start spinning up your minigun, it's like you can't even move. You can move, but it's almost like you can't move. Now, this makes chasing down people and repositioning yourself really difficult. This also makes it really easy for you to get picked off by snipers and spies. I mean, it's already pretty easy to get killed as a heavy, you know, while you're shooting, because you're a big target and people are gonna focus you down. But now with the Brass Beast, it seems to make it even easier. Now, also tied for number 6 is the Tommy Slab, which was released in June 2011 during the Uber update. It's sort of like the opposite of the Brass Beast in that it has faster silent spin-up time, but your DPS is reduced because of the 20% slower firing speed penalty. Now, this weapon works really well if you have a pocket medic and you like sneaking around a bit, but if you're going solo and you try to do this, you might end up losing a lot of your fights, especially against other heavies who are using the regular default minigun. You know, you can win your fights, but you're gonna have to really sneak up on them, and you know, heavy being kind of a big guy, it's a little bit more difficult trying to sneak around. Now, both of these weapons have their uses, but it seems like the heavy, you know, having a balance between speed and damage is the best for most situations for the heavy. I guess the Brass Beast is kind of like a more defensive weapon for the heavy, kind of like how the Scottish Resistance is a really defensive weapon for the Demoman. I mean, it can be used for offense as well, but it seems like it's built for defense. And you know, the Tommy Slab, it's kind of like the Quickie Bomb counterpart, you know, it's all about attack speed and such. So, you know, it's very situational, it's still very useful and very fun to use, but I see a lot of people using the default minigun because you can use it in a lot of different situations. So this was part 1 of my top 10 worst weapons in TF2. I'm going to be doing the remaining 5 in part 2, so be sure to check that out. Now, my question for you guys is, what do you think about these weapons, and what would you change about them if they needed a buff? Now let me know in the comments below. So I hope you enjoyed this video, thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.